I didn't know he was so young. Yeah, of course.
Can't count it over. That's his big name.
Yeah, I could do that. Reasons. Oh, wait a minute.
So you really want that to be the first thing they hear on the stream?
Okay, we are streaming at YouTube at Current Radio, so they cannot hear the music.
Well,
and after the love game. I need somebody to call in who's watching on YouTube at Current Radio and tell me if you
I
can.
can just play it back for you if you'd like.
Let's hear it. Let's hear. Oh, Lord. Oh, God. Let's hear this. This ought to be rich. I thought I heard music. Oh, wait a minute. So they're not hearing music. Okay, we are streaming at YouTube at Current Radio. So they cannot hear the music.
Besides you, no.
All
And
right.
honestly, we need to keep it that way because YouTube will flag us for copyright in a heartbeat. So
Well, that'll be all the singing. We'll put the kibosh on the singing.
First 10 seconds.
And I know how upset you all are all about that. I know it's depressing that I can no longer sing. Maybe we'll just do an hour. Let's get to the president, who had an impromptu. I mean, look at the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. He has a press conference every single day, whether it's on the rundown of the president's agenda for the day or not. He just comes into the press room or, has the press come into the Oval Office and just answers questions. When in fact, Joe Biden did everything the White House did everything they could to avoid Joe Biden answering questions. But he talked about this idea. And again, remember how this thing started. It started by a little Catholic family in Montgomery, Maryland, challenging the fact that their special needs child, who they adopted from Ukraine, was being subjected to this thing and came home absolutely confused between the two teachings, her Catholic teaching and what she was learning in school. And I don't think liberals really get their arms around the idea that young kids are great. Their biggest impression are their teachers, sometimes even more so than their parents. They see these people every day, and in some cases, they look up to them and they believe they're telling them the God's honest truth. And why is it so bad if I, as a parent, don't want to? It's not as if they're trying to avoid the topic. It's just the idea that at that age, I think all the way up until high school, they're not prepared to deal with transgender issues. They're not prepared to deal with LGBTQ issues. Here is Donald Trump this morning from the White House.
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child. And this is a tremendous victory for parents.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And that's why I think there is a broader text to this, in as much as there are several school districts. Chino Hills led the way. Our school district bailed out and said, well, we're not going to get involved in the lawsuit. Let's find out how these other school districts do, and then maybe we'll get involved. When in fact, all the school districts who have the position that parents have a right to know what's going on in their classrooms and have a right to know if their children are transitioning should come together and sue as on a class action basis. And I think this is going to be an absolute transition. And once again, it's one of those 80-20 issues where the Democrats, and we're talking politically now, where the Democrats are on the side of on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue, where they're willing to die on this hill and fight this thing and fight this decision in the name of what? You want to fight parents? You want to fight parents' rights to be able to say, and it's not as if you're taking the child out of the school. You're just simply saying when these topics come up, the child does not necessarily have to attend that class. Liberals are saying that this is going to cause chaos all throughout school districts and whatnot. And I just don't buy that. I just don't buy that. And it doesn't sell in swing states. It doesn't sell in most of America. And once again, this separates what these two, just the chasm between the Democrats and not the Republican Party. There's always a chasm between the Democrats and the Republican Party. Now, the Democrats are so ineffective and so out of step that they're battling the country. This is 80-20. So we'll talk about this in great detail at 4:30 with local defense attorney Clayton Campbell. I have to amend a prediction that I made yesterday.
Amend one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not amend it, reverse it.
Oh no, we talking about New York?
Yeah. Where I said Eric Adams was going to win and beat Zoran Mamdani.
Do I need to pull the promo?
No, it's all right. I don't care. Did you hear what happened? Andrew Crooked Cuomo is now running as an independent.
I had a feeling this would be the case.
So, of course, Eric Adams, former Democrat, who got run out of the Democratic Party because he was a horrible mayor, was going to run as an independent. And as I explained yesterday, this was a very curious New York race. Mamdani won the primary, and as I talked about yesterday, he beat the only candidate he could possibly beat. Mamdani, if you don't know, if you weren't with us yesterday or haven't been following this out of New York, is a democratic socialist who believes in defunding the police, creating safe havens for drug addicts, giving them clean needles. He wants to create city-owned grocery stores. He wants free this, free that, and has no idea how to pay for it, other than raising taxes on corporations by 11.5% and on folks making more than $1 million by like 3%. And of course, that's not going to go over in Manhattan. And he's also been very critical of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's not going to go very well in a city that has a large number of members of the Hebrew faith. But again, the only person he could have possibly beaten, and he did with 43%. And again, remember, he didn't win, with 52%. He didn't win with a majority. He won with 43% in a crowded field that included Andrew Cuomo, who is stale fish. There are people in New York City who literally think that he killed their parents or their grandparents the way he played fast and loose with nursing homes during COVID and really was responsible for hundreds and hundreds of deaths in the way that they handled that and the sexual assault charges that he's facing. Only person Mamdani could have beaten was Andrew Cuomo. Now, when it was supposed to be Eric Adams versus Mamdani, I predicted yesterday Eric Adams is going to win. There's no way in the world anybody trying to lead New York City, with 10 million people and crime running rampant, even though Eric Adams was able to bring crime down a little bit, there's no way you could win the mayoral race talking about getting rid of bail, getting rid of prison systems, defunding the police. It doesn't work. But now Cuomo's going to split the independent vote, and Mamdani is going to screw around and win this thing again with about 43% of the vote. And Cuomo knows exactly what he's doing. Do you think that Cuomo, after getting beat by Mamdani, thinks that now he's going to beat Mamdani and Eric Adams? Come on. He knows exactly what he's doing. My career is over, so I'm going to stick it to him as I go out the back door. So just ignore that promo with me predicting Eric Adams is the victor. We pivot because it is a Friday. It's time to bring in the KGET entertainment reporter. Rick Bentley joins us next.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How are you, sir? Take a quick lap. I'll be right back.
That would be
Here?
Yeah, you now. Yeah. Mr. Bentley, how are we?
I am good.
Trump's restrictions on birthright citizenship.
Do I
Oh, you know what?
Maddie ending?
For one of the rare mornings, I did not watch the 17 News this morning. I gotta go back and watch that. tonight.
Yeah,
I
you got
forgot.
one. Yeah.
It was her last broadcast. And don't it feel good? It's a Friday, and that means KGET entertainment reporter Rick Bentley is live in studio. How are you, sir?
I'm filing a complaint.
File away.
I just realized looking at this video
Yes.
that you're floating. You are like on Aladdin's.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like my chair. I don't know why. I like my knees like up
Every
against the desk.
politician in the world does that. They
Yeah.
want that chair to be just. Every business CEO wants his chair just look so
I-
they can talk down to. So
And
I'm
you know-
filing a complaint.
And you know who I stole that from? Letterman used to do that as well.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Letterman's chair was always higher than his guests.
Yeah. Talk down to people.
I just like having my knees up here for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't know.
Balances me. That's
Well, when you're talking through your rear, you need to be near the mic. So,
So we were just discussing
yes,
that I learned this week
yes.
that Mariska, I don't know how to pronounce this woman's name.
Hargitay.
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 Yes, her was the daughter of Jane Mansfield.
Yeah. I mean,
I-
I'm stunned you don't know that because, like, every interview she does, she talks about that.
Really?
Yeah. She's talked about it for years and years. And now she's done the documentary
Right.
talking
It's
about
coming
it.
on HBO.
Yeah. And that's,
I heard it's really, really good.
I have heard it that also, but it's her mom's story is so amazing and stunning and heartbreaking, and it's got all the elements there. So
Wasn't she dating a
bodybuilder.
I thought it was a gangster. I thought it was a mafioso
Oh,
that her daughter killed.
I don't know. I want to remember because there was a movie made about it. Boy, this is weird how my brain works. And I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger played the person she was dating.
Really?
So that's why I wanted to think it was a
So maybe it was
bodybuilder.
a bodybuilder.
I think it was a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she I was gonna make a joke, but she literally lost her head in
Yeah.
a horrific automobile
Automobile
accident
accident. Yeah.
when Marissa was 3 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's one of those horrific stories.
Yeah.
She had she was one of the key people in Hollywood at the time. She was working regularly, and then
Oh, she would have been a superstar.
yeah.
She would have been a superstar.
Yeah.
I thought she was more attractive than Marilyn Monroe at the time.
I will always argue that I think Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood probably had people. Elizabeth Taylor to me was 10 times more beautiful than Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think Marilyn Monroe had something.
That's my
And the
preference.
only time I tell this, and this is a weird transition. I was at the Playmate of the Year luncheon when Anna Nicole Smith was named Playmate of the Year.
Mhm.
And this was before Anna had just went to pieces.
Yeah.
And she came in wearing that same kind of Marilyn Monroe dress. And there was something about when she entered the room, it took your breath. It was it.
She was stunning. She
And
really
so-
was.
And so I hesitate to compare Anna Nicole Smith to Marilyn Monroe,
Right.
but I think that gave me the only glimpse I would ever see of what it would have been like to have Marilyn Monroe walk into a room. She's a stunning beauty, but I still think that was just something about her energy, I don't know. It was just amazing.
Sinatra called her electric velvet.
Ooh,
I thought that was a great description.
Scooby Dooby Doo, electric velvet.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Thank
It's
you.
pretty good.
Thank you.
So what do you got? What are we talking about today?
Well, I'm talking about a film that you've been looking forward to seeing.
Superman.
No, you're a week ahead. Well, you're actually 2 weeks ahead. F1, the movie.
Ooh, I am looking forward to this.
Now,
I am looking forward to this.
you want the good news or the bad news?
Well, I always like the bad news first.
It's 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Are you serious?
No, I'm lying.
Are you lying?
No, I'm serious.
I can't do 250. I can't.
Let me tell you.
I can't.
Let me
I
tell you.
made the mistake of doing it back to back, and I didn't realize it.
Well,
Literally back to back weekends. I was dating somebody at the time, and we went and saw Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And then we went and saw Top Gun 9 or whatever the hell it was.
Top Gun Maverick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, never again. Never again do I do a 3-hour movie.
Let me ask you, separate the two, Oppenheimer and Top Gun Maverick. Did Top Gun Maverick feel long to you?
Not really.
Okay,
Not
But-
as long as Oppenheimer.
because F1 is directed by the same guy who directed Top Gun Maverick.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And he literally took Top Gun Maverick and said, I'm going to make the same movie. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the jet planes and put in Formula One cars.
Right.
It's the same story. The old veteran that's called back into duty to help the young racer.
A 60-year-old race driver.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also the young kid he's helping is an African American Formula One driver, and in that there is only one African American Formula One
Is
driver,
that right?
and he's actually in the movie. He's one of the executive producers. So the whole idea about this being this diversity in Formula One is pushing it. So if we're going to accept Brad Pitt as a 40, 50 something guy,
Is that
racer,
how he plays a 40? He looks it.
yeah.
He can
Well,
play it off.
I would say because at the beginning, they talk about at one time in the 90s, he was the hotshot Formula One racer. He was going to be it. He crashes, and then he becomes a racer, a driver for hire after that. Okay. And it's 30 years later that he gets called back to Formula One. So at least he's got to be in his 50s.
Right.
So it's not like they're trying to pass him up. Although I will say one of the few things I dig the movie about in my review is that there's a point where they're showing the Brad Pitt's character in the 90s when he was that young hotshot,
Right.
and they used Brad to shoot it, and they try to change it with, I don't know if it was makeup or visual effects, and it's so bad.
Really.
In this era of AI, I expected much better. So if you can get past that really bad moment, look, I know you don't like those long movies, but I will guarantee you, it did not feel like 250 to me.
Really.
Because
Okay.
the actions, it starts in those first few moments, and they don't take their foot off the gas pedal. And you are in the car so much. I swear to you, there were a moment I looked at my movie seat to see if there was a seatbelt I should tighten a little bit because we were going 300 miles an hour.
And according to their interviews on the Today Show, they did their own driving.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
obviously not all of it,
yeah,
but
and
they did a lot of their
and-
own driving, and they were going at ridiculous speeds.
which is amazing. You can even get an insurance company to back.
That's what I thought,
Yeah,
because I remember Le Mans with Newman and James Garner,
right.
and how they fought, because that's eventually what Newman ended up doing, not as a profession, but as like a hobby.
Yeah,
But he did it on the regular. He did it as an active racer.
yeah. He was
and he wanted.
he was a driver.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and they limited what even he could do at that point.
Yeah, but I guess if you can put up enough money, bank enough money,
Yeah.
but you're taking a major gamble. I mean,
Absolutely.
when you're, and those cars are, 300 miles an hour. They're not cars, they're rockets
Yeah.
that you're just steering.
Yeah.
And the movie shows, if you like crashes, there are plenty,
Really.
and shows you how dramatic they're not just, oh, I bumped somebody, or demolition derby type things. These, one of the scenes has a car, I mean, literally flying through the air.
Yeah, they're going 180 miles an hour.
Sometimes they're hitting almost close to 300.
300 miles an hour.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So they are, I don't even know how the human body can react at that.
Yeah, I don't see how you could see
Yeah.
going that fast.
Well, Brad Pitt's character makes the point of that as a veteran, his cortex has developed enough in his brain where he can anticipate danger. He can see the picture bigger. There's a moment when he feels like in the car where he can see everything. He can hear everything. And I think that's what the good drivers can do, that they just have this incredible sense of the world around them.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, how many of even the great drivers end up crashing, bumping into somebody? But if you like it, this is what the term popcorn movie is made for.
Yeah.
It's a summer movie that it has a little bit of a love story, but I
I
think
was just going to ask that. Does he have a love interest?
he does, but it's almost a throwaway. Like, she's the head of the engineering department. As soon as they see each other, their eyes lock. Blah blah blah.
See, I like films that are romantic comedies and the racing is like the background,
Mhm.
Or just some kind of subplot.
So you like Speedway, the Elvis Presley?
I love Speedway.
There you go.
With Bill Bixby.
Yeah, that's
That's
exactly what you're talking about.
That's a great film.
Yeah, rather
And
than
Shelley Fabre, I think, is in it
rather
as well.
than Days of Thunder, which is
Oh, I didn't like this.
Yeah.
See, I didn't like this.
which is more about racing.
And Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And I think Le Mans is one of the best films ever made.
It really is. a good
I mean,
picture.
it really is.
Really is.
But if you like Le Mans,
I did like.
think
the
I think you should give it another chance. I know
Okay.
I know it's 3 hours, but I really do. There are points when in an hour and a half movie, I'm looking at my watch thinking, is this ever going to end? And I like the structure of this because when Pitt's character joins the team, there are 9 races left in the year, and Javier Bardem, he owns this racing team. It's their 3rd year, and
I love him, by the way.
and he's one of those actors that just with a look can say so much. But anyway,
And he looks so different.
yeah,
Like you couldn't recognize him in what's the movie where he's the assassin? No Country for
Oh
Old
man,
Men.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even recognize him.
I know.
He's like a completely different human being and different character. And
Yeah. But if his team doesn't win a race in 3 years, those first 3 years, they can be sold.
really,
Yeah. Now there's that old sports, trope that there's somebody who wants the team to keep losing so they can be sold, blah blah blah.
yeah,
This is all about racing. It's all
Okay.
about the speed. The formula that this Formula One movie follows is drive fast, drive hard, and they do it from beginning to end.
yeah. Okay, that
So-
sounds interesting. All right, we've had 2 corrections. Mark Swain corrected you,
Oh,
saying that it's 300 kilometers, but 230 miles an hour.
excuse me.
I settled down.
I grew up in America where we hear
where we're the only country that's not on the metric system.
because when they say they're going 300, I assumed it meant miles per hour.
Well, that's because we're idiots. I learned the metric system in 1980, and we're the only country that didn't adopt
Now,
it.
was that 1980 or was that 1747 in
All
metric?
right, settle down.
Okay.
And then Robbie Pratt corrected me that it's Lana Turner who dated a gangster whose
Okay.
daughter knifed him to death.
Yes. And again, I don't keep a lot of. That's one part of celebrity coverage I don't keep up with a lot is who's dating and married. But I remember from a made-for-TV movie about her that she dated, that Schwarzenegger played the husband or the boyfriend or something. So that's why I thought bodybuilder.
Yeah. And to jump back to that, I don't mean to jump all over the place, but
Oh, let's do.
Haggerty also found out that her father was not her biological father and
Right.
found out like when she was in her 20s.
Yeah.
That must be devastating.
Yeah.
I would think that is more devastating than losing your mother at the age of 3. To think that this is the guy, because like I was saying yesterday, all the self-esteem I have
Uh-huh.
and all the things that make me a decent human being, I got from 2 people, Ralph and Harriet.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine going through life admiring my dad the way I did and thinking, I can't be that bad. I'm his son. And then saying, no, no, you're not. I don't know.
But-
That would freak me out.
Biology aside, you would still be his son.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe nurture is so much important in a child's growth. Just because you're the sperm donor does not mean you have the gift to raise a child. And if the parent, either the mom or dad, raises a child right, that's the mom, that's the dad. I get it, and I believe kids should know their biological parents, and if this was a perfect world, they'd all grow up with 2 biological parents and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. But I do believe that I have met so many people who have raised children who weren't, that they had adopted, and they are the dad, they are the mom,
Wow.
they are they do everything. So I would say you were going to turn out the man, even if you found out, today by some weird thing.
Right.
Well, you know what, your dad really what? Oh, no, you'd still be the same guy.
Yeah. The poster child for that is Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
He found out, I think, later in life that his dad wasn't his dad.
Yeah.
It's the Sarge, as he calls him, wasn't his dad. And he didn't give a damn. He was like, well, he's the only dad I knew. He's the
Exactly.
one that gave me the discipline that's made me the basketball player that I am.
Yep.
And when he was playing, dedicated everything, all his success to his father. And in fact, I think he did a rap song about it.
Yeah. Well, let's not.
Yeah, I won't ad lib.
He was doing so well up to that point.
Yeah. And Shazam, and getting into the movie industry. Other than that, he's one of the most successful businessmen, and he's a bigger businessman than Magic Johnson.
He's worth billions.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
he's on everything.
Yeah.
Papa John's Pizza, Icy Hot,
Yeah.
you name the product.
Yeah. Yep.
He is a part of it. And what's brilliant about him is he doesn't just sponsor; he buys in.
Yeah.
He wants to be a part of the company,
Right.
and promote it that way.
Well, and that's why he's on all these Papa John commercials.
Yeah.
He's got a vet. It's just not his money. I think he invests his heart,
Mhm.
and there's a big difference in that.
Yeah.
When you commit to something that much, that's a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. What else is going on in the entertainment world?
Well, I was just kind of sad. I mentioned you probably didn't hear it when I said it, was that Bill Moyers died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Bill Moyers passed away at 91 from complications from prostate cancer.
Oh, that's horrible.
But we go through this thing about fake news and real news and good, I think Bill Moyer was one of the great newsmen.
He really
I think
was.
I think he was, if you're going to use a blueprint,
Of fairness.
fairness and
attempted
honesty.
objectivity.
Yeah. And would tackle stories that others wouldn't.
Yeah.
I just admired his work. He started out, he was a Baptist minister in Texas.
I did not know that.
And then he got into politics with Johnson,
Right.
When Johnson ran it, and then Johnson, and there's a famous photo, of Johnson taking the oath of office on Air Force One.
Yeah.
Moyers is in the background. You can see his.
I've never seen him in that picture.
Yeah, he's leaning against the back wall.
Okay, I'll look at it again. I've
Yeah.
got it in a book in my house.
Yeah,
I'll take a
yeah,
look at it.
he's against the back wall. But then he went on into news, and his stuff for PBS, the Bill Moyers Journal, was just perfect journalism to me.
Yeah.
This was a guy, integrity. I would love to I wish there were people like Bill Moyer, and some of those newsmen of that era today working, to see how the politicians would deal with them. Yeah,
That era.
Walter Cronkite wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
He would just shut them down.
Yeah, that era of journalism is over.
Yeah, it is. It's
dead.
sad.
It's absolutely dead.
And not to ding other people covering the news out there, but so much of it is for ratings numbers and popularity, and we've got to make sure we're doing right for our viewership. It's like, no, these early guys we're covering the news, and if you like it, great. If you don't, there are other places to go.
And the race to get it first.
Oh,
I think that is one of the most destructive things about journalism. We were talking about this yesterday in terms of the Iranian assessment of how much damage was
Yeah.
done. And I was just saying, there should have been somebody in the CNN office that should have just said, maybe we should hang on this for a day or two. Why do we have to hurry this? Because as I'm sure, as you well know, at the the story is hottest when it first breaks.
right.
But unfortunately, that's when the information is at its weakest,
Exactly.
at the very beginning.
Nothing's been
And-
verified. Nothing's been
Exactly.
checked. No.
Exactly. And all somebody had to say is, we've got this story, but let's hang on to it for a day.
Yeah.
Let's hear what the Israelis say. Let's hear what the Energy Commission says, et cetera, et cetera. But no, the race to get first, just throw it out there. Let's
Ralph,
see
you
what
know
happens.
this from personal experience. How many times did an editor say, "We're not going to run that story.
Yeah.
You get one more source."
Yeah. Exactly.
It wasn't good to have one or two.
No.
They wanted one more, and
Mhm.
probably would have kept pushing if they could. I'm convinced that the news coverage business, went into the toilet when CNN came along. We thought
Really?
we thought it was going to be the big change. Oh, we're going to get 24-hour news. That's great. But CNN made everybody realize it didn't matter whether you were right, you had to be first.
Yeah.
And I'd seen so many times when CNN would come on and go, well, there was an explosion today in Atlanta, 473 people were killed. 2 minutes later, there was an explosion today and 286 people were killed.
Right.
And they would and never saying, we're correcting an early story where no, it was just, we're pretending like the audience never heard those early numbers, but we were first.
Yeah.
And we could always argue we were there before everybody else. I think that destroyed or really damaged news coverage.
I agree. And now if you watch CNN, which I do because I watch the news mix, which is 6 different boxes.
Uh-huh.
It's got CNN, Fox, MSNBC, the BBC, and 2 weather channels. And every story is breaking news.
Yeah.
They've got the graphic that comes up, breaking news.
Breaking news.
Ralph Bailey started his show today at 3:05.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's a breaking news.
More at 6.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell a quick Bill Moyer story
Okay.
that he told about Ben Bradley.
Oh.
Ben Bradley had broken the story that Johnson was going to fire J. Edgar Hoover.
No.
And so Johnson held a news conference the very next day. And Bradley went to his editors and said, see, I told you this is what this is all going to be about. And Johnson came out and he announced that I've got an announcement regarding the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm assigning J. Edgar Hoover director for life. And the story goes to everybody kind of looked back at Ben Bradley like, what the hell? And the point of the story is you can be right and still be wrong.
Yeah.
Because Johnson was so mad that he was going to break the story
Right.
that he assigned Johnson. In fact, the story went that the reporters said, "Thanks, Ben. You gave us J. Edgar Hoover for life. Thanks a lot." But Morris says the story was that the president called him over and said, "Hand this note to Ben Bradley." And he wrote something down and he closed it up and he handed it to Moyer. Moyer took it to Ben Bradley. And Ben Bradley said, "I opened it up and it said, F you." I love that story.
Yeah. That was the pure journalism days. I mean,
Yeah.
really, and again, newspapers and TV fought to get, stuff, but they were accurate. They really did. I don't know how many times I would write a story and they go, "Nope, you got to have one more source. You can't, but I'm getting this from the person that, nope, doesn't matter. We've got to confirm it. And that's why I always was happy to have worked in newspaper journalism, because it taught me, you may have that, what you feel like is the big story, and you're going to break it, and until it's confirmed, you could do more damage to your career than you could help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see, that's why I'm saying I think CNN hurt the business, because and everybody, even newspapers, that's why we went to online suddenly. It wasn't good enough that tomorrow you were going to be able to read the news. As soon as we could get the stories in newspapers, you had to get a 2-inch story written just to put online immediately. And it's like, well, that's, it's going against our let's get more sources type thing. But no, we had to be, got to be there first. Yeah. And so I think that and many other things is what killed newspapers.
Yep, I agree. I absolutely agree. You were down on the set today at KGET, were you not?
I was there at noon.
Oh, at noon. So do you miss Maddie? This
is for
the folks that don't know, and I'm sure all of you probably do. Maddie Jansen, who was the morning anchor for 14 years, and worked at 17 for 16. Who
still looks 14 years
she
old.
Really does. She looks extremely young.
Yeah.
She's retired. She's going to go home to Tehachapi and raise her kids, her 3 sons, and homeschool them, and walked away.
Yeah.
You don't see that often with somebody with that much skill and and that much tenure. And
I got to know Maddie just a little. I mean, because I normally work at noon. My pieces on the morning show are generally pre-taped, so I don't. But when I've got to talk with her, she's a mom first.
Yeah,
she loves those. I mean, she adores those kids, and she knew that they're at that age where she was going to miss a lot.
Yeah,
and I think that meant more to her. And here's the thing, and I'm not speaking for the station. I don't know. I'm just guessing. 5, 7 years, whatever, until her kids get into college and they're out and about, she could come back.
That is exactly what I told her when she first made the announcement, and we had her on the show. And her boss, Derek Jeffries, was listening. Your boss was listening. And you're a young woman. You'll be an empty nester in about 7 years. Would rehire you like that? My phone goes off, and it's Derek, and he says, "You doggone right," or something to that effect. And so she said, "Well, let me see if I can get that in writing." I wouldn't be surprised if came back once they get into college.
Yeah, but I will say this, and I'm sorry, I don't remember her.
Holcomb, Lauren Holcomb.
Yeah, I got to meet her during when we were doing the fundraiser with the Salvation Army. Girl from Texas. She is another Maddie.
Really?
Give her a moment. Don't diss her.
We are. Good afternoon, those of you watching at YouTube at Current Radio. On this Friday, still got lots to do. Coming up bottom of the hour, local defense attorney, Cardinal fan, and all good egg, Craig Luther. Clayton Campbell will join us. Then in the 5, Craig Luther, local author, wants to opine on the Iranian situation. And I'll tell you more details about wife that tried to whack her husband with her lover. How many times do I have to tell you people, you can never commit a crime with somebody else? They will roll over on you. Although this guy wasn't going to roll over. Her lover was willing to go to jail for the rest of his life for this woman. You talk about, you talk about whipped. Kunta Kinte. Never mind. So that was yesterday's show. But yeah, he was saying, no, I did it all for me. I wanted her, and that's why I did it. That's why I killed him. And his accomplice said, no, he told me that the wife wanted him gone. And that's why he did it. Imagine killing somebody for a woman. Man. All right. 842-5376, our phone number, 842-KERN. Let's see what everybody's talking about. What do you got?
Let's see. 300 miles an hour. That's far-fetched. NASCAR top speed is 200.
Yeah, we clarified that. Mr. Swain, Mark Swain, my golfing buddy, tightened us up. That was in kilometers. Isn't it amazing how we just totally blew off the metric system? Do you know the metric system?
I have very little of it.
Yeah. Other than 100 meters is a little longer than 100 yards,
Sure.
right? 100 meters is like 110 yards, right? Hey, Siri. In yards, how long is 100 meters?
109.
Okay, I found.
Yeah, so it's a little, yeah. So is it. Yeah, so that's all I know. And I learned it in chemistry of all classes at the Brentwood School, circa 1980. But as a country, we've just blown it off. And every other country on the planet uses the metric system, except us. We just blew it off. Just said, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. I think at ballparks, isn't the yardage in yards on the fence?
I believe so.
Or is it in kilometers? I think it's in yards
I believe it's
or feet. It's in feet. It's feet. It's feet. Yeah. We just totally blown it off. 53-yard field goal. We don't care. What else you got?
Ralph, news coverage today is all about ratings, about the dollar. It's not about reporting the truth. It's all about getting the likes, getting the looks, even if it's a lie.
Well, it's always been about money. I mean, you're right. There was a period in the 50s and the 60s where, even in the 70s, where news directors and general managers were willing to take a hit. CBS News, even with Walter Cronkite, did not make a ton of money. And that, in fact, that's what the Edward R. Murrow documentary, or not really, what would you call it, a docudrama that George Clooney did as a movie, and then he made it a play. And now somehow it was like an average movie, but now it is a hit play on Broadway. And that's what that was about. And the decisions that William Paley had to make in terms of not only McCarthyism, that's what it focuses on. I've seen the movie, don't get me wrong, but it also focuses on the fact that Edward R. Murrow, as popular as he was back then, wasn't making any money, you know, and news companies for years did not make money. And you're right, there was a transition, I think, in the 80s and the 90s. And I think Rick Bentley put his finger on it when CNN got in the game. And all of a sudden, you know, your 6 o'clock news is battling, even on the network level, on a national level, your 6 o'clock news is battling CNN that reported the story that happened at noon. They reported it at 1 o'clock, and you got to report it at 6 o'clock. And all of a sudden, networks are getting destroyed. And it absolutely flipped the script on news. But I don't think it's I think it's more about partisanship now more than even money. I think it's about the left being essentially a spokesman for the Democratic Party. And finally, Fox has come along and said, wait a minute, there's another voice. And I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that Fox is the #1 cable news station by far. It's not even close. And why is that? There are more Democrats in this country than there are Republicans. But CNN's coverage is so progressive left that even Democrats don't watch it. That's what CNN doesn't understand. And that's what the Democratic Party doesn't understand about their message. Even Democrats don't watch CNN. More Democrats watch Fox than they watch CNN. That makes no sense. And the logic in it is that even moderate Democrats are closer to being a Republican than are moderate Democrats closer to, say, Mr. Mamdani or AOC or Bernie Sanders, even though Mamdani's going to be the next mayor of New York, thanks to Andrew Cuomo, unless Cuomo pulls out, which probably is not going to happen. He wants to give the city and state of New York a big FU, as he rides off into the sunset. His career is over. That could be the only. Why else would he run as an independent after getting beat by a Democratic socialist? What do you think? You're going to suddenly make some stunning comeback? You think Adams and Mamdi are going to split the vote and you'd somehow sneak in there? No. He and Adams will split the moderate Democratic vote and any Republicans that are going to vote. And Mamdi will win. He could win, shoot. He could win with 40% of the vote. He really could. Let me do my math. I got a 480 on math SAT. So let's say 35 and 35 is 70. Yeah, he could win with 40% of the vote. He really could. He really, really could. What else you got?
That's all we got.
All right, 842-5376, our phone number, 842-KER. Let's go ahead and take a quick early break. And we come back, Mr. Burdick and I will take the New York Times Friday quiz. Feel free to take along with us. I have not looked back at it. I did do Flashback. I love Flashback more than I like the New York Times quiz. Flashback is, okay, they'll say Christopher Columbus sailed the mighty seas and discovered India and America in 1492. And then they'll say Ralph Bailey was born. And you've got to figure out, is that before 1492 or after 1492? So then they'll say 1962. And then they'll say Dwight Eisenhower desegregated the army. You got to figure out, did that happen after 1962? Before 1962? After 1492 or before 1492? And it happened in the 1950s. So you put that in the middle. And it just gives you stuff like that. And I find that more entertaining than the actual quiz.
Very interesting ways of making you learn.
They do. Do they really? I didn't know that.
I believe they're the ones who started Wordle.
I have tried for years to do their freaking crossword puzzle, and
So much fun.
it's so freaking hard.
I like the mini one. I'm sorry, I can never get anything.
I've never completed the big one. And I was a crossword puzzle freak when I was a kid. Freak. I started it with the time, and I'm talking to old people, the TV Guide. The TV Guide used to have this tiny little celebrity crossword puzzle on the last page. I would do it every week. And then I graduated to Star Magazine. And I don't know how I found this, but Star Magazine had a full page crossword puzzle. And I was so disgusted at the Star Magazine that I would get it at the register and I would hand the magazine back to the register and just take the last page. And she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't want this. I just want the crossword puzzle." Because I was so embarrassed that people would see me in line. And I was a kid. I was like a teenager. And I was still embarrassed to buy Star Magazine. Ever tell you I got offered a job at the National Enquirer? In the 1980s, they offered me $65,000, when in 1980 was a ton of money. And I couldn't do it because I would have had to have used, they ask you for like Hollywood sources that you have. And I put down 5 really huge names. Gil Cates, who was president of the Directors Guild at the time. Donald Diamont, who was on Young and the Restless at the time. And all the celebrities I could come up with. And they ask you, are you willing to use those people as sources and get stories? And I said, absolutely not. And didn't even get a second interview. It's like, no way I would do that. No way in the world. In other words, I was an idiot. Quick time out. Coming right back. It's TRBS on a Friday right here on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KER. We're streaming live at KernRadio.com.
Very excited about our next guest. I've been
Hey, I got to do a live spot. Can I call you right back? Okay, I'll call you right back. Okay.
I'm aware. I'm aware. I've spent enough time in Vegas here to know that I'm not alone.
The JR Show, weekdays at 2 p.m.
Hope you were with us yesterday, Thursday, when our money man, Daniel Petrie, joined us, as he does each and every week. And it was an interesting day because it was a lot of politics, obviously. And again, as I stress, that's what makes Daniel so important to this broadcast. He comes on here talking money, but he has political knowledge that can explain what is going on with the big, beautiful bill and what goes on inside the Beltway and how it impacts you. But again, as I try to stress each and every day we talk about them, they're all about retirement, Messmaker and Petrie Wealth Advisors. I've been a client now for 8 years. Don't want to depend strictly on Social Security or my 401k. And if you want to join me, call them at 395-9400, 395-9400, or just tune in on Thursdays at 4:30 when he joins us right here on the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Constitute a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any security, future option, or other financial instrument, or to offer or provide any investment advisory or other services to any person in any jurisdiction by Daniel Petrie or MPWA, DBA, Messmaker, and Petrie Wealth Advisors. Any views expressed in this
Yeah.
prepared based upon the information available to us at the time, and we are under no obligation to update our views.
King Door Company continues to set the standard in the garage door industry, and I'm here to tell you the reasons why. First off, King Door carries Clopay garage panels and lift.
Should it?
There you go.
842-5376, 842-KERN. 42 looks good on you. Thank you, sir, Mike Big Dog. This is the, I wear this every Friday. This is the jersey I got on Jackie Robinson Day. Oh, I forgot. Everybody, I share it with everybody. Let's see if you can see. Can you see the back?
Guys, yeah.
42. My high school numbers, other than baseball, they didn't have 24 or 42. If I couldn't wear 42, I wore 24. But we didn't have either one in baseball, so I wore one because I was the leadoff hitter. Just thought I'd share that with you. I don't know why. All right, let's take the New York Times quiz, shall we, Mr. Burdick?
Oh, shit.
it should be easy this week with all that's going on. Are you kidding me? You know, it should be really easy. Let's see what's going on here. All right, here we go. Who goes first?
You know what? I think you went first last time, so I'll go first.
All right. Zohran Mamdani claimed victory in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor this week. How does he describe his political alignment? Anarchist, Democratic Socialist, moderate, libertarian, fiscal conservative.
I would hope it's not anarchist. I'm going to go with the second option.
Democratic Socialist is absolutely right. And in fact, it is absolutely right. Number 2, my turn to go first. President Trump announced Monday that Iran and Israel had agreed to a ceasefire. In his post on Truth Social, what did Trump say the war should be called? Crooked Joe Biden's war? Now that's funny. The war of peace, the war against Iran's nuclear program, the 12-day war, or the war that I ended. You know, that's just typical of the times to put that option up there. The war that I ended. So I'm just taking a guess. You got to rule out the war that I ended. You got to rule out crooked Joe Biden's war.
Yeah,
Look at how they're feeding into Trump's pettiness. The war of peace, that's a possibility. The war against Iran's nuclear program or the 12-day war. There is a history of them naming wars after days, so I'm going to go with 12-day war.
I would have to go with 12-day war as well.
All right. And we're both correct. 2 for 2. Your turn. A fleet of American B-2 bombers, the most expensive plane in history, struck the Fordo nuclear facility in Iran. How long were the bombers in the air? I know this. I know the answer to this. 2 hours, 12 hours, 37 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours.
37 hours seems like a way too particular of a number, so I'm going to go with 37 hours.
That is correct. It was 37 hours, and it was 37 hours. I watched the Pentagon. I wanted to get the audio from that, from people that wanted to defend Pete Hegseth, because Abby Phillip did a compilation from the press conference, and he just looks unhinged. And she played the part where he tears apart Jennifer Griffith, one of the best Pentagon reporters in the business, and a Fox reporter, meaning a former colleague of our Secretary of Defense, and he just ripped her. And Abby Phillip had it on her show last night. And if you think this guy is stable and is capable of being Secretary of Defense after watching this tirade he goes on, then there's nothing I can say to you, because that's just so I almost said unpresidential, but it's just so beneath a cabinet member, let alone the man heading the Pentagon. I'm sorry. Let's get back to this. Who's first?
I believe this is your turn.
A Supreme Court decision released on Monday allowed the Trump administration to send migrants where? Alcatraz, federal prisons, counties, countries other than their own, CIA black sites. I don't even know what that is. U.S. territories. Well, we're not sending them to Guam or Puerto Rico, that's for sure. I don't even know what CIA black sites are. I'm going to say countries other than their own.
Yeah, I think that's the logical answer.
Yeah, that's what the whole Kilmer Abrego Garcia thing was about. That we were sending him to El Salvador, and he wasn't from El Salvador. We are absolutely perfect thus far. I told you it'd be easy. Number 5. What event caused Governor Kathy Hochul of New York to declare a state of emergency for 32 counties this week? Was it a flood, a heat wave, a hurricane, a mass shooting, a rat infestation?
Now, the rat infestation would be funny.
That would be funny.
Heat wave?
We're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave. That's what I'm going to say. That's what ain't no flooding going on in New York State.
Heard about that.
Yeah, and it is a heat wave. 5 for 5. Number 6, Jeff Bezos. Oh, I didn't want to talk about this.
We did kind of dodge.
Everybody is talking about this man's wedding, and I'm like, really? And who was there? And I could not possibly care less about who Jeff Bezos is marrying. Jeff Bezos and his fiancée Lauren Sanchez are hosting a lavish wedding this week in what city? Florence, Milan, Palermo, Rome, or Venice? Am I going first?
This is you, yes, but I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Oh, I know where it is. Oh, see, it's not fair for me to say. I shouldn't say that. I'm going to take a guess. It's Venice.
Venice.
Yeah.
It seems
Because what's his name on the Today Show made some stupid joke. He said, I was invited, but I thought they meant Venice, California. Boom. Yeah, that's stupid. 7. Which car company began limited operation of a self-driving taxi service in Austin, Texas? Was it Hyundai, Lucid? I can't. Koenigsegg? Koenigsegg. Koenigsegg? I don't know. I'm not. Rivian or Tesla?
I'm going to go with Tesla.
Yeah, me too. It is Tesla. Told you it'd be easy. The NBA draft took place this week. Which player did? No, let's skip that. Cooper Flag. Number 9. The image above comes from a new telescope named after the astronomer Vera Rubin. Where is the Rubin telescope located? Well, Chris, you're screwed, but at least the folks watching on YouTube
You can kind of see where
at Current Radio can see that. Can you see that?
you can kind of see that.
Yeah. All right. That image comes from a new telescope named after the astronomer Vera Rubin. Where is the Rubin telescope located? Is it near Earth's orbit, beyond the asteroid belt, in the Inwood neighborhood of Manhattan, at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, on a mountain in northern Chile? I have absolutely no idea.
Same here.
Is it your first or your first?
No, you're first on this one.
Damn. I'm going to guess.
Can't be in the outside of the world, you would think, right?
Yeah, and Chile is a pretty high point. I'm going to say northern Chile. Although Kilimanjaro, I'm going to say northern Chile.
Always go with
Yeah, I'm going to go with northern Chile.
I'll stick with you and go with Northern Chile as well.
Correct. Do we have time for one more? We got 2 more questions.
Got 2 more questions.
We'll do it when we come back. Oh, we can't do it. We'll do it. We'll bring Clayton Campbell, see if he can get the 2, because he's going to join us next. The Supreme Court made some major decisions, all in favor of President Trump. But does it end birthright citizenship? We'll ask that of local defense attorney Clayton Campbell when we come back.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Actually, I was surprised.
KERN. From the KERN newsroom, your live and local news update on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. I'm Bill Robbins. The Bakersfield City Council has passed an $852.7 million budget in spite of criticism from residents over funding priorities, especially the large allocation for public safety. Residents complained that the budget spends 44% of its money on the police department and said that with
Just to warn you too, we are doing video now.
Oh,
okay. Hope that's okay.
Causes such as mental health, poverty,
Sorry about that. I
and
hope you're
homelessness.
okay.
Kern County has issued a public health
Well, you
advisory.
know.
Lake Isabella.
It's the radio then.
Right.
Video killed the radio star, right?
Have you clip that to your lapel right there? Probably about second button where I've been telling everybody. Yeah, right about there.
All right.
And that's only for the video stream, so you won't have to worry about that in terms of the radio, right? And then
Sounds good.
everything else is same old, same old.
All right. wanted to make sure I was ready. So.
842-5376, 842-KERN. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to talk with local author Craig Luther. Wants to give his opinion on the Iranian situation. And then also with the five, I'll tell you the story of the woman down in Woodland Hills that surprisingly, we were bringing up the Sabrina Limon situation. It was kind of a love triangle. She was dating her racquetball coach, talked him into killing her husband for the insurance, and he was willing to take the fall for her, but he got an accomplice unbeknownst to her, and the accomplice ratted him out, and she got life in prison yesterday. And the only reason I say it's a coincidence is because on my walk, Chris Orr texted me and said, you know, it's funny, I was just watching the Sabrina Limon documentary, and I saw Clayton Campbell in the documentary. Were you involved in that case?
Yeah, the facts were not quite what you described. I represented the firefighter who actually committed the homicide, and he testified in her trial because she was.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't mean to imply you defended Sabrina Limon.
No, but I was at the trial. I mean, I worked out the plea bargain for the guy that testified. That was kind of the key witness. They didn't charge her until he was willing to testify.
The
firefighter
lover.
Yes.
Yeah. And is he still in prison?
He is, yes. But the deal was he got a fixed term rather than a life tail, where she has 25 to life for first degree murder. He pled to manslaughter plus a couple of other things to get the fixed term.
Yeah. And let's, just before we get to why I asked you to come on, let's explain that for the folks that don't know what Sam Hill we're talking about.
Well, this was a case from a few years ago where Sabrina Limon and Jonathan Hearn, that was my client's name, they conspired together to kill Rob Limon, that was Sabrina's husband. And after a first attempt that didn't work, or they canceled it, they kind of
she put poison in his banana pudding.
That's right. And then
and then he took it to work, and she called him and said, "Don't eat it."
Right. And then later they decided to do it a different way, and Jonathan shot him. And then Jonathan was probably the most remorseful client I've ever represented.
Yeah, he was a very religious kid, wasn't he?
Yes, and you know, normally I don't talk about client cases, especially in public, and he expressly wanted me to explain, you know, when asked, that he does not shift the blame. He doesn't say it was, you know, he's a very humble guy, takes full responsibility for what he did. What I did was my job as a defense attorney, and worked out a plea bargain for him. And also, without his testimony, they never would have had enough evidence for her. They didn't actually charge her initially until we approached them with the evidence that we could provide.
Right.
So yeah, it was an ugly case. He didn't have to go to trial because he made a deal, but he had to testify at her trial. And that was 2 or 3 days of testimony.
Yeah. And it was national news. NBC covered it. That's probably where Chris saw it recently.
Probably. They keep rerunning these things. You know, Dateline did an episode, which was very disappointing in my opinion. But then 2020 approached, like a couple years later, wanted to do their own episode on it. And when they called me, I don't think I really want to do this, because the way Dateline kind of botched the story.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we promise to stay true. And they actually, Dateline, or the 2020 episode, was much, much closer to the, you know, real story than the other one.
I don't think a lot of people know you've had a lot of celebrity clients.
I've had a few.
You had Lawrence Phillips,
yes,
the running back that was sent out to was it Kern Valley State or North Kern?
He was in one. I can't remember which one. He was in one of those two. Yeah, that was a tough case.
And you're convinced that he was murdered. They say he committed suicide, but as I remember in talking with you, you think he was murdered, or is it the other way around?
I don't know what happened to him. I wouldn't offer an opinion one way or the other. I think he was really struggling with. I don't think he was guilty of murder. That's what he was charged with. He did kill his cellmate, but I think he killed his cellmate in self-defense.
Oh, that's what it was. That
was a. We're getting far afield.
Yeah, we are.
But I did have to speak at his funeral, and that was a surprise.
Did
to me.
you really?
Yeah. When my partner Jesse was the one who was initially retained to represent him, and so the two of us worked on that case because it was a complicated case. And after Lawrence passed, his mother asked Jesse to come and speak at the funeral. So I went with him, and we get down there, and I get the program, and my name's in the program too. So I had to think of something to say, which, you know, wasn't that difficult. Lawyers are commonly required to think on their feet, and I was familiar with the situation, and Jesse went first, so it made it a little easier.
Yeah.
But that
Lawrence
was-
Phillips, for the few people that aren't old, do you remember Lawrence Phillips? Should have been one of the greatest running backs who ever lived. He really should have been. The kid that was out of Nebraska and just absolutely carried Nebraska to a national championship, then got with the Rams, and he had a little issue with putting his hands on women, and it followed almost his whole life. He did it at Boulder, he did it in Nebraska, he did it in the NFL, and it's a sad story because he seemed like other than his issue, a decent guy. As difficult as that for me to say for a guy that liked to put his hands on women.
I didn't know him very well, but I know in criminal law we commonly see people are the entire opinion of someone can be formed based on like the worst moment of their life,
Right.
and that sometimes that's
who knows that better than I.
Yeah, and sometimes that's deserved, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes
Right.
The worst moment is a true reflection of the way that person's total character is.
Right.
But it isn't always. And one thing I take away from that story was when we were at the funeral, one of the people that spoke was a kid that had lived in a group home with Lawrence, and it was a group home for foster kids, mostly older, too old to be adopted, and it was a kind of a mix of people from different backgrounds. The one thing they had in common is that their parents couldn't take care of them, and they were in this group home. And this kid was 10 or 11 when he got put in this home, and he didn't know how to read, and everybody made fun of him. Even at the whatever school he went to, when classmates that were his age figured out that he couldn't read, they made fun of him, and other foster kids would make fun of him. And when Lawrence learned that this guy didn't know how to read, he taught him how to read. And so this kid got up there, and to him, Lawrence wasn't an NFL star. He wasn't a Heisman Trophy winner. He wasn't a felon who beat up a woman. He wasn't a defendant accused of murder. He was the closest thing he had to a big brother. And he got up there, and I mean, it was very moving. And he said, Lawrence taught me how to read.
That's incredible.
And it was sad. He lost a brother there. It wasn't some star celebrity. It was his brother.
Was Tom Osborne or Dick Vermeil there?
Osborne was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Vermeil was there.
Vermeil had a really close relationship with him.
He may have been. My recollection is
I remember in the documentary he cried when he said he had to cut him because he just had so many issues. Anyway, I apologize. Let's get to what we want to talk about, and that is the incredible. Or am I being hyperbolic in saying that these are incredible decisions? Let me start here. Is it fair to say that the presidency, not necessarily Donald Trump, but obviously Donald Trump because he is in the presidency right now, but the presidency itself is much more powerful than it was this morning? Is that accurate?
Well, I don't know. I think we're probably closer to what the presidency is more powerful now than it was 100 years ago, and probably shouldn't be because, in my opinion, Congress has abdicated its power by delegating so much to the executive, creating all these executive departments that legislate through regulation. As far as the president asserting his actual constitutional power and the courts interfering in that, I think that what we've seen is now the court has reestablished, no, the president can do what the president does, and cases have to run their course. You can't just have some rogue circuit judge dictating from a particular district court what the president can and can't do nationwide.
And this is not a Trump issue. This has been Obama fought this, Biden fought this, George Herbert Walker Bush fought this.
Well,
presidents.
This is mainly a problem when there's a Republican president. And this is one of the things that's really irksome to me as a conservative, as a Republican. You can't have one set of rules when there's a Democrat in the White House and a different set when there's a Republican. When there's a Democrat in the White House, the left wants to just let him do whatever he wants. He can be a dictator. He can just rule the country from the White House. Remember Obama, I've got a pen and I've got a phone. I don't need Congress. I can do what I want through my regulatory power. Joe Biden tried to, quote unquote, forgive student loans. And what he did is basically he tried to take $500 billion of debt that people voluntarily signed up for and transfer it to the taxpayer and call it forgiveness of a debt. Now, forgiveness of a debt is when somebody who is owed the debt says, don't worry, you don't have to pay me back, right?
Right.
And but when you say, don't worry, you don't have to pay it back, I'm going to make this other guy pay it back. That's not forgiveness of a debt. That's shifting the debt to a different payer. And now people on the left are just celebrating this. Oh, this is so wonderful. We finally have a president who cares about the plight of college graduates. And I'm being a little ironic there, but they thought this was a wonderful thing that he did, even though there was no legislation to support it. And we didn't have, and we have, of course, the court said you can't do that. It got to the Supreme Court. But then when Donald Trump comes in, all he's trying to do is actually enforce the law with some of this border stuff. Now, some of it, I think maybe he's getting a little aggressive and the courts might curtail it. But the difference between when a Republican does that and when a Democrat does that is that the Democrats, they expect the courts, with their people put in the courts, to help them accomplish their policy objectives by ruling from the bench, as opposed to going through the legislative process. Republicans appoint justices to the Supreme Court and judges to circuit courts and appeals courts, expecting them to uphold the Constitution. So sometimes you're going to end up with a little clash. So, for example, Trump comes in there and he's very aggressively enforcing his immigration agenda, and some of those policies are running into the court. The court saying you can't do it that way, do it a different way, and do it with legislation. So that is that's the thing that's frustrating, is that when you have a Democrat in the White House, they run around and they act like they're a king or a dictator of the country, and the Democrats, the people on the left, say absolutely nothing. And then Trump goes in and he says, well, I've got this federal statute on immigration. I have federal law enforcement, ICE officers. I'm going to go in, I'm actually enforce the law. And in a city like Los Angeles, that's a quote unquote sanctuary city, if they're not going to cooperate with us and tell us when they have somebody who's a wanted illegal alien in custody for a crime, and if they're not going to tell us so we can take matters, take care of it, we're going to have to go find them. And when we find them, we might find other people that are violating the immigration law as well. So they cast a wider net, and there's more scrutiny in those communities than there would be in some, rural Texas town, for example. So, when they freak out over that and they hold these ridiculous rallies, no kings, we can't have a king, we have a dictator, we're defending they pretend they're defending the Constitution when they don't even know what they're talking about. But then when one of their guys is in there legislating from the White House, they say nothing. And they want the courts to just back them up. So that's the problem with this dual standard, depending on who's in the White House. And you can't have a standard if it's not a standard. So what happened with this recent case, the Trump versus Casa case, the Supreme Court opinion you're referring to? There were 3 separate federal circuit courts that ruled that Trump's interpretation of the birthright citizenship provisions of the 14th Amendment, they ruled that was wrong. But they didn't just say it was wrong. They imposed an injunction. And an injunction is a court order saying you can't do something. So think of it like a restraining order, right?
Stay.
Yeah, and it's a restraining order saying you're not allowed to do this, or you're in violation, you're in contempt of the court. And they imposed it not just relating to the parties in that case. Or in the circuit court where that judge has jurisdiction. They imposed it across the entire country. Yeah. Exactly. Now, this is relatively new. When you look at this opinion written by Amy Coney Barrett, she lays out the whole history of equitable injunctive relief. So
let me stop you right there, just so I don't lose my own train of thought.
Sure.
Were you shocked that, according to most of the pundits that I heard, she absolutely bitch slapped Ketanji Brown Jackson in her opinion?
I wouldn't say shocked. Justice Jackson's opinion, quite honestly, was it was ridiculous. I mean, basically, she's acting like they're ruling on the final issue. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing about this. And I can get to that in a minute. But
that was going to be my next question.
Injunctive relief of this nature is essentially a temporary ruling that is imposed with a prediction of the outcome of the ultimate question. Okay, so for example, let's say you're planning to burn some tires, and I file a lawsuit against you, and because I don't want you to burn the tires because it's going to be devastating to my property, which is adjacent to yours, where you have this bonfire plan. And the court says, well, would it be fair to stop Ralph from burning these tires while this lawsuit, because the lawsuit may take a year for us to hash out whether, and by then the tires are already burned and the damage is done or whatever, or you're dumping chemicals into a river or something like that. The law does allow for injunctive relief, which is where the judge decides that, first of all, the person asking for the restraining order is likely to win eventually. And also, if this is not stopped now, there will be irreparable harm, right? So you have to have both of those things, a likelihood to prevail on the merits and irreparable harm. And then if those things are found true by the court can then impose an injunction. So injunctive relief can be temporary, so that's like for the duration of the case, or at the conclusion of the case, they can say you're permanently prohibited from burning the tires or pouring the chemicals in the river or whatever. A lawsuit, like a suit at law, would be like a suit for damages. I'm suing you because you put chemicals in the river and now it's caused damage to my crops, so now you got to pay me money, as opposed to an injunction saying stop dumping the chemicals in the river. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it common law, back in the olden times when the Constitution was written, we had courts of equity and we had courts of law. So when you look at the Seventh Amendment, for example, where it guarantees the right to a jury trial in a civil case, it says in suits at common law, where the amount in controversy exceeds $20, I think it was, or 25, or some small number, which at the time was large, then you were entitled to a jury trial. Now, you're not entitled to a jury trial in a court of equity. It's a judge making kind of a ruling on fairness. And when I say equity, I don't want to be confusing because it has nothing to do with the modern, like Marxist concept of equity. We're talking about fairness in the old common law system. So when they wrote the Judiciary Act in 1789, Congress empowered federal courts to basically handle all variety of things, including suits at equity and suits at law. Now, we didn't see these nationwide injunctions until the middle of the 20th century. So we're talking 1950s, 1960s, you started seeing circuit courts issue these nationwide injunctions, and it never had been done before. And so one of the issues today was, well, what do they mean when they empowered in the 1789 Judiciary Act, when Congress empowered the federal courts to make rulings in cases? What did they mean when they empowered them equitably? Well, the modern interpretation would be, well, injunctions are normal, and so they're empowered to do a nationwide injunction. But at the time, there was no such thing as a nationwide injunction. We had these other things that were kind of replaced by the I would say class action statutes. So we had things that would affect.
I got to get to that too.
Yeah, so you could impose something that would affect people that weren't named in the lawsuit.
Right.
But that's been mostly replaced by the class action lawsuit, right? And so they make this distinction in the opinion when Barrett says Congress did not empower the courts to do these nationwide injunctions, and so it's illegal. So what the left is accusing Trump of doing, going beyond his constitutional authority, they're asking the circuit courts to have that power
To do the same thing.
to go beyond what they're empowered to do.
Yeah.
And so what Barrett said to Jackson, you're claiming there's an imperial presidency, and what you're asking for is to create an imperial judiciary.
Yeah, where at some point she wrote, everybody has to follow the law, even judges, is what she said to
That's
Ketanji
right.
Brown Jackson. It's like, that is such an insult to a member of the Supreme Court. Just to remind you, Ketanji, even judges have to follow the law.
That's right. The law is the law. It's not supposed to be just a tool for you to advance your policy
Right.
preferences. Now, if you want to advance your policy preferences, don't become a judge, become a legislator.
Yeah.
Because that's really where the policy is supposed to be debated and hashed out, and then people vote on it. We have a consensus.
All right. Talking with Clayton Campbell, local defense attorney and constitutional expert. So give us a Reader's Digest version and talk to us like we're sixth graders. Where does birthright citizenship stand right now?
Well, in the districts or the circuits where these injunctions were imposed, Trump is not allowed to pursue the policy that he wanted because the court limited the scope of the injunction
To that district.
to the jurisdiction of the judges who issued those injunctions.
Which is 28 states.
Well, I
that
don't know.
right?
I don't know what exactly it is, but the areas that are covered by those particular judicial circuits are still subject to these injunctions. But you can't just go outside of it. You know, the whole idea is they don't want you shopping around to find a judge that'll give you what you want,
Right.
and then getting just one judge. Maybe he was appointed by a president from the different party, and you get that judge to make a ruling, and then it just gums up the works for the president because these things take years sometimes to be litigated all the way through. So at some point, the Supreme Court will take up the issue of birthright citizenship and determine whether Trump's interpretation of the 14th Amendment is accurate or not.
Explain the avenue of suing through a class action.
Okay, class action is a suit at law, usually, where you're seeking damages. So let's say you have a defective product, for example, that's out in the market. Like the Ford Pinto is a great example. This defective product, all these explosions.
One of the
So-
ugliest cars since the Gremlin.
Well,
The only uglier car than the Pinto was the Gremlin.
there are some ugly cars out there. But
You got something worse than the Gremlin?
I don't know.
With
What is
thing
that?
bubble back? You don't remember the Gremlin?
What's the one that's the box that they have now that's like looks like a toaster?
Oh yeah,
That thing is
yeah,
hideous.
That is hideous. You're right. You're right.
I don't know how they decide to make these cars. Maybe there's a market for ugly cars, and
Yeah.
they know more than we do. But my point is, that you have this defective product,
Right.
and you got maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of plaintiffs out there who are injured by this product. What they'll do is you might have to avoid having hundreds or thousands of separate lawsuits, and then the company that's defending the lawsuit has to defend it against all of them. And then you have you're tying up all these resources in different courts, and they're going to pay the same experts to go testify over and over again. What they would do is they would consolidate these cases, or somebody could file as a plaintiff claiming to represent the entire class, and then they would have to do some kind of due diligence to notify every member of their class of their rights, and then they go and they litigate it the one time. Sometimes it's a lottery. You might have 2 or 3 big personal injury firms, one from LA, one from New York, one from Chicago. They all file a class action suit. And then they got to get into a situation where the court has to decide which one gets to be the plaintiff who goes to trial.
Will class action suit, if the court makes a definitive decision on birthright citizenship, will that sew up the class action suit as an avenue?
Well, it's totally separate from class action. We're not talking about a group of people suing for damages. We're talking about a determination of their legal rights under the Constitution.
But isn't that an avenue for them?
No, it isn't.
I thought that's what I read this morning.
I don't believe it'd be a class action. What it is the Supreme Court will issue a ruling on the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which will be definitive. It'll be final for everybody, whether they're part of the class, whether they're not part of the class, whether they sued or whether they didn't sue. You don't have to designate a class. You don't have to create a class action in order for that to be effective. Where in a civil suit, you would.
Right.
So let's say I get injured because my Ford Pinto is bad, and I sue Ford Motor Company, and I go to trial, and I win the trial or I lose the trial. That's not binding on other people. But a Supreme Court decision interpreting the 14th Amendment would be binding on everybody. It's not just that particular case, unless there was something so specifically peculiar about that circumstance that it wouldn't apply everywhere else.
And this really began with slaves, correct?
Well, the 14th Amendment was designed to ensure equal protection of the law. It was one of
for children of slaves.
Well, for everyone.
For even slaves not born here?
Well, this is after slavery. Slavery was eliminated in the 13th Amendment. Then the 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection of the law. And then the 15th Amendment guarantees the right to vote to former slaves. So it was in that spirit of equal protection under the law and equal treatment of everybody that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed.
Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, absolutely. And part of the proof that the American ideal, as set forth by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. It wasn't immediately realized, but that was a major step in the process.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're progressively realizing and living up to those.
That under the law, we're all created equal. Not that we're all equal, because they certainly do not believe that black folks were equal with them in the 18th century.
Sometimes it takes a long time for society to change. And so, but the beauty of it is that changes are being made. We're getting progressively better.
Set up a system where the changes could be made. That's the brilliance. That's the incredible brilliance of those cats.
And now we live in the most free and equal society ever.
That changes from decade to decade and century to century because of the way they established the Constitution. Got a couple of minutes left. Let's see if we can squeeze in the decision out of Montgomery County, Maryland, where the mother, a Catholic mother, has a Ukrainian child. She's adopted and has special needs. And the kid comes home confused because she doesn't understand. You are teaching me this, and they're teaching me this about transgenderism, boop, boop, boop. She goes, fights it. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And finally, a court has decided 6-3 again that parents do, in fact, have a right and can withdraw their children from classes that are discussing transgenderism or sexual situations. And I think what's important to understand, at least in my opinion, and it's not about parents not wanting their children to know about transgenderism or lesbians or gay people. It's just at that age. That's what college is about, maybe even high school. But we're talking about elementary school children that are being taught, gay stories. That just shouldn't be part of the curriculum. And if you can't change the curriculum, you should at least be able to pull your child out of the class. And that's what the court said.
Well, yeah, this shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, this is the most common sense thing. What's crazy to me is that this was 6-3 and not 9-0.
Exactly.
It's crazy to me that it had to go to the Supreme Court. Reverend Chad Vegas, local minister here, he put it best. I saw his quote. He said, anyone who needs the Supreme Court to tell them that the parents have a right to have a say in whether their kids are in this type of class or not, those people have no business teaching children. Yeah. If you need the Supreme Court to tell you that you can't do that, you shouldn't be teaching kids. And I agree with him.
But we're still fighting it. We're still fighting it in the state of California, where they're teaching. They're keeping. If my child transitions and tells his social studies teacher, they don't tell me, the parent. Does that decision impact that? Is that part of parents' rights?
I don't know how it will affect that, but probably. But California can't force children to go through a class like that if the parents object to it now, based on that decision. That is a nationwide binding opinion of the Supreme Court.
It was shocking. You're right that it was 6-3. I mean, that's just
It's not
where
really
we are.
shocking, but it's shameful.
Exactly.
It should be shocking.
It's the 21st century, is what it is. It really is. Always great to talk to you, sir. Appreciate you coming in here.
Thanks for
Always
having
good to see you. Clayton Campbell, everybody. Quick timeout. We head into the 5. We're going to talk with Craig Luther, a local author, get his opinion on the Iranian situation. I've got some other miscellaneous news and notes to get to. We'll wrap this thing up on a Friday. It's TRBS on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Sweet. That was great. That was really good. That was really good.
Well, thank you.
Sorry I screwed up talking all that nonsense.
Oh, no, that's okay.
That did catch me by surprise when you said Sabrina Lamone. I thought, is there another Sabrina Lamone? Because that was a little bit different. The facts were a little different.
Yeah. I was just on my walk, and he was like,
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that case. That was like
that was
case.
crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
off the record, when I get that, whenever I see banana pudding,
Isabella, boaters, dog owners, and any others who use the lake for recreational purposes are being warned about toxic algae blooms within certain areas of the lake. Visitors are being asked to watch for signage, use caution in affected areas, and avoid algae and scum. I'm Bill Robbins in the KERN newsroom with news every half hour or when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
What do you think? This is the army where you shoot them a mile away? You got to get up close like this. Bada bing! You blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit.
It's the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Now make sure you leave the house when you make the call. You understand me? You hear me? Call from an outside line. I mean it.
Call in or text to 661-842-KERN. That's 661-842-5376. Listen live at KERNradio.com. Now, the host you've been waiting all day for. Live from the KERN studio, here's Ralph Bailey.
Final hour of the broadcast, final hour of the week as we wrap up another 5 days of outstanding radio broadcasting right here on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN, where we stream live at kernradio.com. Don't forget, tomorrow, are tickets still available, do you think? I wouldn't bet on it.
I'm not 100% sure.
The Iron Lily as an what's the word I'm looking for? You can put 300 people in the Iron Lily.
As a venue?
Now, what is the word I was looking for? Occupancy.
300.
So I'm thinking we're sold out, but if not, take a shot. We'll be at the Iron Lily tomorrow between 2 and 6. It's the Battle of the Bartenders, Casey's Steakhouse, and a number of different bars are going to be there. Luigi's is catering, so it's going to be some great food. It's going to be a great time. It's all hands on deck for our staff. Everyone will be down there. Come say hello, put a face to the voice, although you can do it now on YouTube at Current Radio. Thanks to JR Flores, who hooked up this whole, JR did the whole ensemble back here with the American flag and some honor flight stuff that we have. And he jerry-rigged all this stuff up, and hopefully this will motivate management to put in some reel so we get maybe a couple cameras and different viewpoints. And I don't know. It's exciting a little bit. It's just something different. I've been here 12 years. Fine. I've been begging to do this. I think we should go Facebook, Instagram, a whole bit. Is that a possibility to tie it all in, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook?
Technically, it is a possibility, but they would have to go into different areas. But I know of those routes, but it depends if they want to take them.
Be better to do Instagram. I think Instagram is more popular these days than Facebook. Don't you agree? Facebook is like for old cats like me. Instagram is for kids like you. Is that accurate?
No, it's accurate.
That your generation is more Instagram oriented and mine is more Facebook.
Yeah, then the generation under me has TikTok.
See, yeah, I don't even mess with TikTok.
I only do that for the show, for EBS.
I don't mess with TikTok. Until the Chinese sell it, I would never even mess with TikTok. Craig Luther is a local author. I believe he's up in Tehachapi. We've had him on the program before, talking about Vietnam and other historical events, and now he wanted to opine on the Iranian situation. Craig, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me, Ralph. And what a wonderful week it's been for President Trump, but more importantly, for our country.
I have to ask questions that I know the answer to, so I'll ask, why do you say that?
Well, first of all, just, after 46 years, and you know, given my age, and I remember it so well when the Iranians took over our embassy and held those folks hostage for 444 days and didn't release them until, I guess, the day that
Ronald Reagan was inaugurated.
Reagan was elected. And I was in Germany at the time, and right about the same time, the Russians had invaded Afghanistan, and you had the German foreign minister throwing up in the garden at the foreign ministry, thinking that we were on the verge of World War III. So all the things that Iran had done, all its terror attacks on us, the bombing of the barracks at in Lebanon, the bombing of our military barracks in Saudi Arabia in 1995. You can just go on, and we finally hit back. And here's a key point I wanted to make, Ralph, that I haven't heard from a lot of people. What matters most to me about our military's what I think is a very successful attack on Iran's nuclear program. What matters most is not if Iran's nuclear program was set back for 10 weeks, 10 months, or 10 years. What matters the most is that Trump did it. He set the precedent, and if the Iranians try and get frisky again in the next 3.5 years, try and rebuild at any of these nuclear sites, they're just going to get bombed again, as Donald Trump said today. So again, I think that this was probably a very successful attack. Even the IAEA, the Atomic Energy Agency, has come out and said that. But I think it's the fact that Trump did it, and he'll do it again if necessary. So I think we're going to see a prostate Iran for a long time, which opens up the whole possibility of maybe changing the entire calculus as it exists right now in the Middle East.
What do you expect next? Do you expect regime change in Iran? Do you expect them to continue to pursue to enrich the uranium?
I just don't see how, at this point, they have so been knocked back on their heels. Their government seems to be entirely infiltrated by the Israeli Secret Service, the Mossad. Their scientists are dead, lots of them. Their military leaders are gone. The heads of the Iranian Republican Guards are gone. I think they have a huge cleanup on aisle 6 that they have to do to just try, the mullahs I'm talking about, to just try and get their country back in order, I think, before they could even think of their nuclear program. And of course, with Trump in office, they would be absolutely foolish to do that, because he's just going to destroy it again.
One of the things that the liberals, after they were left with egg on their face, trying to say that it was not a very successful mission, and ran with that. And then as you pointed out, the Atomic Energy Agency came out and said that the centrifuges were, quote, no longer operational. And even the Israelis co-signed that this thing was devastated. They're now trying to say that the uranium was moved, that's what that satellite picture illustrated, the trucks that were lined up. Do you buy that? And how do they come up with such supposition?
You know, well, first of all, I'll just say I don't buy anything that emanates from a CNN or one of the other similar networks. What Trump said, and certainly makes sense, is those trucks that were there were simply to try and protect those sites by covering them with concrete and maybe other materials. It would have been, I think, a really big operation for them to try and move all that fissile material. But here's the thing, you know, there are people that are skeptical of how close Iran might have been to a bomb, because we've been saying for a long time that Iran is on the cusp.
Yeah, that's one of the message issues. The fact that Benjamin Netanyahu, dating all the way back to 1996, has been crying wolf and trying to draw us into attacking that they were weeks or let me finish. That they were weeks or months away. 02, he said it again in 05, he said it again in 15. And that's what's causing all this kind of like, well, how close really are they?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But the IAEA issued a white paper just a few weeks before this attack happened. And what they said, and here I'm quoting from the executive summary, quote, Iran can convert its current stock of 60% enriched uranium into 233 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium in 3 weeks at the Fordo Fuel Enrichment Plant, enough for 9 nuclear weapons. That was the report that they just released in May of this year. And then Secretary of State Rubio came out and said that Iran had enough enriched fissile material to produce 9 or 10 bombs. And I imagine he got that from the IAEA report. And I don't, as one of these NGOs, you know, these non-governmental organizations, I don't think the IAEA is particularly a mouthpiece for President Trump. So I find it that they were actually pointing out that Iran was on the verge of a nuclear breakout to build as many as nine weapons, nuclear weapons, is very significant.
Yeah. Craig Luther is our guest, local author and historian. Are you as surprised as I that the majority of Americans are not in favor of this thing? Although there is a large percentage, I think it was close to 20%, that had no opinion. But the majority of folks do not approve of this. Are you shocked by that?
Well, I guess I've seen other opinion polls than the ones that you've seen. So I've seen some, for example, that said that a good majority of folks were very much against Iran having a nuclear weapon.
That's not what I said. That's in the 80 percentile. There's no question about that.
Right.
But I'm talking about the mission itself.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know if I've seen whatever poll you're referring to, but I did see one that pointed out that something like 90% of Republicans, or maybe it was just MAGA Republicans, are in agreement with what occurred. And you know, the thoughts that this was going to lead to World War III or something like that. Look, Iran is prostate. Even their so-called allies, the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, they just, I mean, it may have been convenient for Putin and Xi Jinping to be allies of Iran until suddenly it wasn't convenient.
Right.
And it certainly isn't convenient now. So they are completely isolated. So their proxies have been destroyed. You know, they were trying for decades to encircle Israel with these largely Shiite proxies to encircle and then eventually destroy Israel. That's done.
Yeah.
It's all done.
Hezbollah.
And so there's, as I understand it, Ralph, Trump and Netanyahu are putting together a as we speak, a Mideast peace plan. So we'll just have to see how that turns out. And what I would think might be important to do, if the Iranians, if the mullahs still don't want to play ball, if they still won't give up their nuclear program, if they still won't refuse to refer to Israel as the little Satan and want to destroy it, and us as the big Satan, that why don't we just put a no-fly zone over Iran like we did over Iraq after the first Gulf War? And anytime they try and fly a military plane, shoot off a missile, or rebuild their nuclear program, we just take them out. There's not a thing that they could do about it.
All right. Very good. I have to leave you on that note. Mr. Luther, always good to talk to you. Appreciate you coming on the program and talking with us. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Ralph.
All right. Take care. Craig Luther, local author and historian. We'll take a quick time out and come back, see what you all are talking about. We have yet to finish the New York Times quiz. We still have what, 3 questions left?
2 questions.
2 questions? And we are perfect thus far, are we not?
We are 9 for 9.
8 for 8. Are there 11 questions?
There are 11 questions. Because remember, we skipped one. Oh, well, I guess, yeah, 8 for 8, because we skipped one. We skipped the NBA draft one. Because it was too
Well,
easy.
I think everybody who's ever watched college basketball this year knew who the number 1 is. I don't think he's going to be the factor everyone thinks he is.
Although
he's turning 19.
Yeah. Put on the
He's
team.
they're gonna Caitlin Clark him. They're gonna push him around and bump him and physical him and like he's gonna be a superstar. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I mean, he's essentially a freshman in college coming into the NBA. Not that it hasn't been done. It's almost the pattern now, one and done. But I just don't think. I don't know. We'll see.
Most of the kids that got drafted in the top 5 were 19.
If he is that big a factor, Dallas, if street clothes can stay in a uniform and Kyrie can stay healthy, Nico might keep his job. Nah, not really.
Not really.
The man, we're talking about the man that got rid of Luka Doncic. Quick timeout, coming right back. We'll finish up the quiz, check the board, see what you're talking about. Got some miscellaneous news and notes as we wrap up the week. Don't forget about the Battle of the Bartenders tomorrow at the Iron Lily from 2 to 6. And despite what's being said in the newspaper and on television, it's presented by American General Media. Did you see the commercial said it was presented by Eagle Mountain Casino? I don't think, obviously must be one of our sponsors, but this is a AGM jam. And Stephanie Diaz cited all of our events. This, Mac and Cheese, Kids Fest. What's the other fest we have?
Actually, I believe Kids Fest.
Brunch Fest.
Fit Fest.
Fit
I
Fest.
believe is a thing, yeah.
Did not mention the Honor Flight Open going on its 4th annual year next year. Come on, Stephanie. That's our big deal. Honor Flight Open, 4th annual, Bakersfield Country Club, sometime in March. Quick timeout, coming right back. It's TRBS on Friday, right here on Newstalk 96.1, AM 1180, KERN. We're streaming live at kernradio.com.
News Talk 96.
Casey,
N.
what is? Do me a favor too, Mike.
Cut it
side's
off.
always right, your side's
Even
always
during the
wrong,
commercial?
or taking a bunch of
You
long,
don't wanna do the
dull calls.
commercial?
No, we take a fast-paced look at the events of the day, the issues, the controversy.
weekdays noon to 2 on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Now, back to the Ralph Bailey Show.
I did it. Normally, I would be singing right now,
You can get away with
but
it.
because of you people, I can't sing because you can't hear the music, and I'm not singing a cappella.
Well, actually, the music can be heard, but we can't play that much of it because YouTube will flag you.
You're so paranoid. YouTube,
So many rules.
They're not coming after a little radio station.
You'd be surprised. I'm telling you.
842-537-6842-KRN. I don't think we have time to squeeze in the quiz, but let's see what's on the board. What do you got?
You know, I do have a caller for you. Ray's on the line real quick.
Ray, you're on the Ralph Bailey Show.
Ralph, I got all excited when I heard a news article on a different news show, and I haven't heard anything about it yet. And I should have researched it and just kept my mouth shut. But did you hear anything about Egypt and the United Arab Emirates taking over Gaza for Israel?
No, not at all.
In 2 weeks, they said they're renewing the Abraham Accords, and they'll go in there. They'll figure out who the terrorists are. They'll deport them, and they'll allow the remaining, I want to say Palestinians, for lack of a better word, to come and go out of their country where they want to go. And it sounded like they're taking it off the Israelis' hands. I heard it on a different news show, and I haven't heard anybody else mention it.
I have not seen anything like that. I'm looking it up right now, and I don't see anything about that. I really don't. But all right, we'll follow that up. Thanks for the information. Appreciate it.
Love you, man.
All right, man. Thanks so much. 842-537-6842-KERN. You see anything on the wire about that?
I have not.
I would think that would be a huge. We don't put up Fox News anymore. Can we still put up Fox News back here? Or would that be, can you see that? Oh, you'd be able to see it.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's too bad. That's too bad. I would love to have Fox News up as we normally do. We normally have, and instead of this flashing, we have Fox News up there, but can't do it. One more, and let's get to the bottom of the hour.
I believe Bob Hope once said, if it weren't for double standards, Democrats would have none. Still true today. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good line, too. Bob Hope didn't write it. Bob Hope had writers his whole life. Never ad-libbed a thing in his life. And you know who hated Bob Hope? Johnny Carson hated Bob Hope. Thought he was a horrible guest because all his stuff was written, and they would give Johnny like straight man lines to set up Hope whenever he was on. Bob Hope was a god when I was a kid. Mostly based on his USO work and going to wherever fighting men were in harm's way and providing some entertainment and bringing really hotties to Vietnam and Korea. God, I remember I saw one clip of he had Raquel Welch and Joey Heatherton on stage in bikinis at the same time, celebrating the Vietnam veterans. Quick time out, last half hour. Oh, the week. It's the Ralph Bailey Show. I would stick around if I you.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
With us on the news, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Senate
what?
Republicans appear to have President Trump's big bill back on track after a flurry
And then you have the other side that goes into the, oh, I thought Donald Trump said he wasn't going to start any new wars.
The JR Show, weekdays at 2 p.m. The Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, live 9 to noon. Now back to the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Yeah. Chris is trying to, I already did it. Chris is trying to train me to turn the microphones off during the break so I don't say anything stupid.
I'm saving you.
And I was like, get out of here. I'm a professional. I've been doing this 21 years. Get out of here. I would never do that. I turned the mic on, I turned around, and I absolutely burped right into the microphone. Right before we came on the air. I turned it on, I was sitting there and just went,
I'm trying to see.
And I was like, damn. And then I was like, Bertie, just like literally 30 seconds before my on-air burp. It's like, you better get in the habit of turning it off during the break, because once you get lazy, you're going to say something. You're going to do something.
That's how I do it on our show.
I farted or something, and oh, sorry about that.
I show in the morning. I made a whole video reel that people can look at instead of looking at my ugly mug.
Yeah. All right, let's get back and finish up the quiz, shall we?
Yes.
We were 8 for 8. Yeah, because we did the draft. That was the 8th question.
We did the nebula, right?
Did we do the nebula? I don't think we did. The image above comes from a new telescope named after the astronomer Vera Rubin. Where is the Rubin telescope located?
Yeah, and we said it was at the top of Chile.
Yeah, you're right. We did get that right. Okay. All right. Settle down. 2 more. 10. This week is the 10th anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling that legalized, for those that are just joining us, we're finishing the New York Times quiz. We do it every Friday. It's an 11-question quiz on the week's events. And you know me and quizzes. I love it. I love quizzes. Okay, so this week is the 10th anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling that legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. What is the name of that case? Whose turn is it to go first?
I believe it's mine.
Good, because I know the answer.
Oh, fantastic.
Is it Hollingsworth versus Perry, Loving versus Virginia, Obergefell versus Hodges, Romer versus Evans, or the United States versus Windsor? Good thing
Obergefell versus Hodges.
How the hell did you pull that out of your arse?
When in doubt, go with number C or with letter C.
Is that what you were trained to do?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what they tell you to do all the time in those chests.
Is that right? To
Oh,
pick
yeah.
C?
When in doubt, go with C.
Really? I was taught, because I actually took an SAT class, I was taught always take the outlier.
True.
Always take the answer that seems not connected to any the other answers. But you're absolutely right. Or let me make sure. Yes, Obergefell versus Hodges. Going for a perfect score. This is the second time we're perfect, huh?
Yes.
Why are you pointing at me?
Because I know the answer to this one.
Are you in there doing the test and then checking
No.
the
I'm
answers?
just looking at the answers. I hadn't touched any of them. Like, you can come look at it. I haven't touched anything.
All right.
I was just looking at the net, like, so I could see it in front of me.
A new film from Pixar. Oh, of course you know this, and there's no way in the hell I know this. About a child who goes on a cosmic adventure. Ain't no way in hell I get this right.
No, it's hilarious. I'm not even going to watch this movie.
A new film from Pixar about a child who goes on a cosmic adventure had the worst box office opening in the studio's history. What is the film called? Is it Amelia J. Supernova? Please stand by. What was I say? Elto or Elio? Elio, Starburst, A Mystery's Journey to Mars, or Zorp? All right, well, I'm gonna exclude Zorp because it's got an exclamation point in it, and you don't put titles with exclamation points.
True.
Starburst is a candy, so that's not it. Amelia J. Supernova, that's ridiculous. So it's either Elio or A Mystery Mysterious Journey to Mars. I'm going with Elio.
Wow.
Did I pull
Hell
that out of
yeah,
Mars?
but yes, well
I
done.
pulled that out of Mars?
Yeah, you did.
I did indeed. Thank you.
Perfect score.
So you got lucky and I got lucky. We got a perfect score. All right, very good. I love that.
Totally should have flipped those last two questions.
I wonder if there's a way we could do the flashback.
I'm not sure if you could. I'm sure you could pull it up on your phone, but I don't know if I can see it on the website yet.
If I could just describe the year,
yeah,
that is much more fun and it's much more difficult. It's much more difficult.
We could somehow get listeners in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I could pull this off. Please stand by. In the meantime, what do you got? Anything on the board?
Yeah, I got a couple here.
What do you got?
Ralph, do you think taking birthright citizenship away from Americans is fair?
Ooh, I am perplexed about this. I really, really am. I really, really am. Because I think inevitably we have to do something about illegal aliens who come here undocumented and yet are viable members of our society and our economy. And I think they should be punished. I think there should be some sort of tax or something that they have to pay back or a percentage of their salary or something like that. I don't think we should just give them a free pass to come in here and squat, essentially, and become citizens. But even the president has recognized that we're destroying farmers, we're destroying the hotellery business, the restaurant business, the landscaping business, we're hurting construction. These people have, through our own negligence, through our own inability to come up with legislation to deal with immigration, they have ensconced themselves into our society like a parasite that would climb in your vertebrae. And if you know anything about medicine, you know that there are two fields where doctors will tell you we still don't know everything we need to know. And that's the brain and the spine and the back. And if you get ensconced in your spine, there's no surgeon that can go in there and get that parasite out. The surgery is just too complicated. And I think it's the same parallel with what's going on. If you're going to try to separate the bad aliens from the good aliens on this wide mass deportation deal, you're going to end up rounding up good people that are a part of our economy. In terms of birthright, no, I don't think it's fair. No, I don't think it's fair. No, I really don't think it's fair. But at the same time, I can see the argument. You know, when we hear that the Chinese, that Xi Jinping is sending over Chinese males and females to have babies here and maybe even get educated here and then go back to Beijing. I have an issue with that. And I do believe that the origin of the 14th Amendment had more to do with slaves than it did with illegal aliens. But that's a great question, and it's one that I am flummoxed over, but I lean towards believing that it's not fair. And I know that's not popular with my audience, but that's never stopped me because I'm an idiot. What else you got?
I just got one more here. It says, listening to your short discussion about the metric system made me think about the SNL skit Washington's Dream. If you haven't seen it, you need to. It's hilarious.
I have not seen it. What is it called? Washington's Dream?
Washington's Dream, yeah.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up on SNL. Something on SNL was actually funny. No, that's funny. I'm not a big SNL guy. I do like the opening skit, and I do like Che and Mr. Johannesburg. Johansson. I mean, I call him Mr. Johansson because you have no idea how much. There are two current day stars that I am simply stupid, foolishly crazy, would murder Colin Jost to be with. And one is her, not only because she's hot, because everybody in Hollywood's hot, but she just seems chilly, doesn't she? Doesn't Scarlett Johansson seem like the kind of chick that you'd want to hang out with? And she doesn't seem like one of these girls that like knows that she's hot. You know what I mean? I mean, every girl that's hot knows that she's hot, but not every girl that knows that she's hot acts like she knows that she's hot. And 8 out of 10 of them do. So when you get one that's a 9 or a 10 and they act like a 6, that is so attractive to me. She just seems so freaking chilly. I saw her at a Cubs game with him, wearing a Cubs jersey and a ball cap. You know what I'm saying? You think Kim Kardashian would go to a ball game with a jersey and a ball cap? Well, yes, she would, with tight leather pants, and it'd be a midriff jersey, but yeah, she would actually. I'm just saying. What do I know? Let's go ahead and take our final break of the day. What is for dinner tonight on a Friday? On a stay-at-home Friday? I got blown off by whatever is
blooming.
Blooming, yes, good word. Got blown off about an hour ago.
Bummer.
Yeah. Stay-at-home Friday for the kid. I was thinking about perhaps sneaking down to Golden West Casino and edging up for my Vegas trip. Do a little practice. But it's a different world. It's not really practice. That's why I stopped playing it at Golden West. Because those guys, it's not poker. Those guys will play 5, they get dealt 5-2. Unsuited. And they'll play it. And then 2-4 comes up. And they'll stay right with you. And then, because it's 2-4, so they're throwing $4, $8, they don't care. And then they get the 6 on the river and you're screwed. And they turn up and you're like, you had 2-5 unsuited. You know, in Vegas, it's different. There's like a pride that you want to look like you're playing smart. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like Gold West, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? These guys are throwing chips. Let me see if I can hit this. You know what I'm saying? But in Vegas, they play smarter. I don't know. That's just been my experience. But I'm really tempted not to go only because I did so well the last time I was there. I know I'm going to get my head handed to me in August. Absolutely no way. There's no way in the world. I have 2 consecutive Vegas trips where I go home with the mob's money. No way in the world. So it kind of dampens the trip even before I leave. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I won 2 or 3 nights playing poker, and I won $150 playing blackjack. And that just doesn't happen to me. At a $10 table, I was there for about an hour with Joe Smith from Des Moines, Iowa, who split kings. God, I swear to God, I just went, not with Joe, splitting kings, not with Joe. Split kings. The only good thing, you got a 5 and a 2. You got a 5 and a 2. It was great. Big dummy. Final break of the night. Keep it locked. Charlie Kirk at the top of the hour. Monday, Dr. Jeet Singh will be with us along with Kathy Abernathy, and we'll tell you all about the Battle of the Bartenders. We might even have the winner in here because I'd be willing to bet. In fact, I'm putting my money right now on KC Steakhouse. Right now. There it is right there. I said it. We'll do all that on Monday. Keep it locked. The Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Start your day right. First Look with Scott Cox, 6 to 9 a.m.
On the Monday edition of the First Look program, we'll look at the various Supreme Court's last day in office rulings. We'll talk jobs with America's Job Center at Kern. We'll see if we put together 12 TVs for the homeless veterans in the tiny cottages. We got news, we got traffic, we got weather. It's all happening 6 to 9 a.m. right here at KERN.
First Look with Scott Cox, 6 to 9 a.m. News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Look who's here. It's Gino Antonio Valpredo from Luigi's Restaurant and Old World Delicatessen. Gino, I call you the Michael Corleone of the family because you kind of stumbled into the family business.
I worked there in junior college a little bit, never known that I'd be back into the business. And then my mom and dad took it over, and I still love the saying. And they said, well, we have a restaurant. What do we do now? And my mom said, just treat people the way you want to be treated.
Antonio, it's that philosophy that you created that's made Luigi such an iconic restaurant.
I feel like the community comes together when they talk about Luigi's because we've been there for so long. I have seen so many families and children and their children and their children. When we started, it was something else. And now look at it. It's amazing. 80 something employees, and they're just the best people in all of Bakersfield.
Luigi's Restaurant and Old World Delicatessen, where families meet.
This is a special notice to U.S. taxpayers owing $10,000 or more to the IRS. Tax Relief Advocates is urgently notifying taxpayers that tax relief initiatives are now available that may significantly reduce or eliminate what you owe. If you're afraid of an IRS lien, levy, or wage garnishment, don't lose hope. You can now take advantage of these current relief programs to end all collections, reduce the amount you owe, and resolve your tax problem. Even if you have years of unfiled tax returns or are already in a payment plan, you may still qualify for significant relief. Struggling taxpayers can now get relief they need during these hard economic times. A hotline has been established by Tax Relief Advocates for you to call and see what you qualify for. They are A+ rated with the BBB and have over 1,000 5-star reviews. Don't wait. Call 800-575-7147. 800-575-7147. That's 800-575-7147 or simply visit TRA.com.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
420 Kingdom, call us and we'll bring them in less than an hour. Call 777 King.
Hey, Bakersfield, 420 Kingdom just leveled up. You asked, we delivered. 1 hour delivery guaranteed or get 20% off. 20% off. Royal rewards that stack every time you order. Exclusive new drops, bigger selection, and fresh daily deals. Plus, no delivery fee on orders over $50. But we didn't stop there. Visit our new pop-up shop at Luxor Lounge, 3015 Callaway Drive. Open 7 days a week. Same top shelf products. Order online and pick up at Luxor. Visit 420kingdom.com or Luxor Lounge today. Get premium cannabis delivered fast, fresh, reliable. Must be 21 years of age or older, 18 or older with medical card. California license C12 0000405.
420 Kingdom, call us and we'll bring them in less than an hour. Call 777 King.
You're listening to The Ralph Bailey Show. Catch me weekday morning 6 to 9 a.m. on First Look with Scott Cox, News Talk 96.1 at AM 1180 KERN.
All right, let's see if we can do flashback. Let's see if I'm smart enough to be able to talk you through this. All right, so the way flashback goes is they give you an opening date event.
Okay.
For example, please stand by. Gotta put my glasses back on. The opening event occurred in 1839.
Okay.
And it was Robert Cornelius takes one of the first photos of a human. It's of himself making it the first selfie. That's pretty funny. 1839. Okay, now they present another event, and you have to determine whether it occurred before 1839 or after 1839. And then as they mount up, you've got to figure out where they stand in chronological order. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so the second one is Steven Spielberg wants a complex musical score for film Jaws. The composer John Williams picks a simple 2-note theme. Da-dum, da-dum. Now, did that happen before 1839 or after 1839?
I wonder.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty simple. All right, so now you've got 1975 and 1839.
Gotcha.
Those are the two dates you currently have. This is where it's going to get hard because I have to read all the dates.
Yeah.
Prohibition begins. Patients can still buy alcohol with a doctor's prescription, so whiskey is suddenly used to treat asthma, cancer, and simply old age. That's what I use it for. Did it happen before 1839 and did it happen after 1839 and before 1975, or did it happen before 1839 or after 1975?
It would be between the two dates, I would say.
It happened in 1920, to be specific. And I'm right. Prohibition begins. Patients can still buy alcohol with a doctor's prescription. That's how we got weed on the legal. Led by F.W. de Klerk, South Africa becomes the first and only country to ever voluntarily give up all its nuclear weapons after developing them. When did that occur?
I would say that's after 1970, not after Jaws.
That is correct. That was after apartheid fell. So I'm guessing, I'm going to say it would have occurred in 1990. I'm so good.
Dang.
I'm so good.
Right on the money?
Right on the money. Works because it was Mandela.
Sure.
I mean, I was, coming out of Morehouse, like I wasn't following Mandela. In fact, we protested. In fact, we fought the Morehouse administration that didn't want to have anything to do, because there was a big fight about apartheid. And the fight in the 80s was, should we divest from countries that are investing with South Africa, given the fact that they are a slave nation? And we were all part of that. Morehouse College didn't want to have nothing to do with it. And we were all young and stupid, and we tried to fight the administration. And that was a huge, huge deal. In fact, it's part of Spike Lee's movie, Do the Right Thing. There's a big portion of that they're talking about that. All right. Work starts on the Hoover Dam. Bored construction workers want to have fun during their time off, so Las Vegas expands its newly legal casino industry. Woo.
That's a toughie.
All right, so Bugsy Siegel gets the Flamingo going in like the 40s. So I'm going to say
after Prohibition, but
before
Jaws.
75. Yeah, that's easy actually when you think about it. I'm trying to figure out the year.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 1947. 1931. Wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. We're still perfect. Ruby Bridges, age 6, integrates a public school in New Orleans. The staff refuses to work with her, except for one teacher who shows up every day for a year. Did that happen before 1920? After 1920, but before 1931? After 1931, or before 1975? Or after 75 and before 1990? I'm going to say
in between 30 and 70.
That is a good guess, because I'm going to say like the 50s. I'm going to say 1950. 1960.
Ooh.
Wow. We're still right.
Yeah, but still.
But 1960? Wow. At the St. Louis World's Fair, Ernest Hemingway sells Persian waffles. He folds one to hold a dessert from a nearby booth, popularizing the ice cream cone. When was the ice cream cone invented? That's got to be is it before 1920 or after 1920? Or after 1931? It couldn't have been after 31.
No.
They were eating ice cream in the 30s. Is it before? The question is it before 1920 or after 1920?
I want to say it's before 1920, but I'm probably wrong.
I'm going to say after 1920.
Okay, we'll go on opposite ends of this.
Ooh, you were right. 1904. Nice. 1904. God, the ice cream cone was around the turn of the century.
Not realize
I would have never guessed that. I would have never guessed
been
that.
eating ice cream for over 100 years.
What's going on? Diddy's defense blasts fake trial and closing arguments. Oh, I thought we had a verdict.
You just looked up and saw Diddy.
Saw Diddy. I was like, uh-oh. How much time we got? All right. William Morrison builds the first successful electric cars in America. Meanwhile, President Benjamin Harrison brings electricity to the White House. Now, if anybody knows this, I should know this. When was Benjamin Harrison president is what they're asking. I think it's after 1839 and before 1904.
I'm gonna ride with you on this one.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's 19th century, like 1870s, 1880s, something like that. 1891. All right. I didn't get the day right, but you got it right. Massachusetts becomes the first state to require smallpox vaccines for the general public. Amid opposition, it's later one of the first to repeal its mandate. Massachusetts becomes the first state to require smallpox vaccines. That's tough. That's tough. What do you got?
Was it rampant?
I'm going to say before 1904.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing.
But before 1891?
See, that's such a small window of time.
I know. Or is it between 1839 and 1891?
Let's take that one because that's a bigger gap. That's a bigger gap.
All right, we'll stick it in there, see where it goes. No, 1810. Oh, 1810? I'd have never guessed that. It was before 1839. I'd have
Way
never
off
guessed
regardless.
that. Yeah, I would have never guessed that.
Oh well.
I tell you, that's fun. Isn't that fun?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's more fun than the quiz because it makes you think of historical events. You got to compare, and you can make educated guesses. Like when was Benjamin Harris president? And
honestly, it reminds you of these historical events
yeah,
that you otherwise
absolutely.
would probably forget about.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for us. I want to thank Clayton Campbell for joining us, local defense attorney and overall good egg, local author and historian Craig Luther, and of course, our Friday regular Rick Bentley. You can catch him at KGT TV 17. Monday, Dr. Jeet Singh joins us along with, of course, our Monday regular Kathy Abernathy, and we'll tell you the winner. They might even have him in studio from the Battle of the Bartenders tomorrow. For Chris Burdick, I'm Ralph Bailey. That's what's really going on. Wrap to you Monday.
This is AM 1180 KERN.
All right. Oh, that's right. I'm trying to let you know. Show me how to do it. So I can just do it.
The white one right there on the stream. Just end it.